This is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4? Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, DRG. Let's go. What do you think for tonight?
You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the
Let's
Warriors.
go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not. No,
recently he's putting up games like
above our head for the players.
literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do.
And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo, here tonight, going solo show as the Celtics are out on the West Coast right now. A little late on the East Coast. I believe it's almost 2 a.m., if I'm not mistaken, on the East Coast. But we still have you guys covered here, Celtics Nation covered here for the Celtics game tonight out in Los Angeles against the Los Angeles Clippers, where the Celtics pull out a nail-biting performance in LA, 117-113 over the Los Angeles Clippers, winning back-to-back games for the first time since January 2nd and January 3rd, when the Boston Celtics, if anybody can remember back to that stretch, beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in Minnesota, and then the Houston Rockets in Houston. Tonight, the Boston Celtics win against the Clippers, marking their second win on their West Coast road trip. The first one, of course, coming against the Golden State Warriors by 40 points on Monday evening in San Francisco. That was never in doubt for the Boston Celtics after the first quarter. Yet tonight, there were definitely some moments in which could have doubted the Boston Celtics. And really what we're going to get into is the fact this performance was atrocious by the Boston Celtics, really. I mean, a win is a win. That's what we've been saying in January for the most part, outside of 2 blowout wins against the Magic and the Warriors within the last 4 games. The wins haven't even been that pretty. The losses have been putrid, but the wins haven't been that pretty either. And tonight's win was not pretty by any metric whatsoever by the Boston Celtics, because coming into this game, first of all, we have to disclaim this. The Los Angeles Clippers, no James Harden, no Kawhi Leonard, no Norman Powell, no Ivica Zubac tonight. 4 starters not in the lineup for the Los Angeles Clippers, all quality starters, mind you, for the Los Angeles Clippers. And the Celtics, they come into this game with an attitude, it looks like early on, that, 4 starters out for the Los Angeles Clippers. We're going to be able to come in here. It's LA. It's warm out here on the West Coast. We're going to come in here and just roll over the Clippers. We're just going to come in here and be able to jack shots, hit a couple threes, and walk out with a win. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Clippers, who they throw out onto the floor, well, folks, this is why the NBA is so tough to play. Every single player in the NBA was a star at some point in their career. And they were a star, either in high school, in college. They were a star. And then I know Justin likes to mention, too, Summer League. Summer League, some of these guys can really put on some performances as well. And the Los Angeles Clippers, their entire starting lineup were filled with star players who were stars in high school and college, not in the NBA by any metric. These are role players. These are second unit players for the Los Angeles Clippers. Guys like Kevin Porter Jr., guys like Amir Coffey. Of course, Derek Jones Jr. is typically a starter for the Los Angeles Clippers, but even Kobe Brown out there for the Clippers. Mo Bamba trying to rejuvenate his career in Los Angeles. So you have all these players with the Los Angeles Clippers tonight really coming in and taking advantage of the opportunity in front of themselves. And even I want to read off some more names here for the LA Clippers on who was playing for them tonight. So you have Amir Coffey, Derek Jones Jr., Mo Bamba, Terrence Mann, of course, the star of the 2021 playoffs for the Los Angeles Clippers a couple years ago, Kevin Porter Jr., Kobe Brown, Bones Highland, Jordan Miller, and Cam Christie. Almost called him Chris Christie. Cam Christie. But that's who you have on the floor for the Los Angeles Clippers. Just named every single player for the Los Angeles Clippers tonight on the floor who got minutes, received minutes with the LA Clippers. And you look at that lineup, you look at who was on the injury report coming into this game, and really a lot of people thought, oh, the Celtics, this is going to be an easy win. An easy bounce back. I shouldn't say bounce back, but really bounce back win from the recent stretch the Celtics have been having lately, where they're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We've seen they haven't won a back-to-back game since January 2nd and 3rd. It's January 22nd right now, so it's been 3 weeks for the Boston Celtics, and this seemed like a game with all the players on the Los Angeles Clippers squad. Oh, it's going to be a game the Celtics can roll over. But the reality was the Los Angeles Clippers came to play with the players they had out on the floor. And everybody years and years ago was talking, oh, Tyronn Lue, yeah, he won the championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But the reality is with Tyronn Lue, he's still a phenomenal head coach. The Clippers just gave him an extension not too long ago, and he has coached this Clippers team well, even without all of the stars out of the lineup. There's only so much you can do without your stars and inconsistent rotations. You're not going to be the best team in the world, but can you scrap out a few games here and there? Can a coach really coach up players to come out and play in a game like we saw tonight? Most certainly. And Tyronn Lue did that with his squad. And the Clippers, they played excited. They played excited. Every single player who was out there on the Clippers tonight went, great. No James Harden. No Kawhi Leonard, no Norman Powell, our 3 main scorers, our 3 main ball handlers. With those players out, it's my turn. It's my turn. And the reason these guys are in the NBA is because they love playing basketball. That's the bottom line. If you're in the NBA, you have to love playing basketball. They played basketball their entire lives. And when you're sitting on the bench in the NBA, you want your opportunity. Nobody wants to just ride the bench in the NBA. And all of these guys who played with the Los Angeles Clippers tonight, they saw this as an opportunity to, number one, prove themselves, but number two, just get a run in to play the game they love. Kevin Porter Jr. was excited to play this game. Derek Jones Jr. had a career night, was excited to play the role he was in tonight. Probably hasn't played this role again since college or high school, back in those days for himself. Amir Coffey, same ordeal. And the Celtics really fell victim to that tonight because the Celtics really came out in this game lacking detail all over the place. And they were shot chucking early on. The defense looked like Swiss cheese. And the Celtics, they didn't play their game at all. They really didn't throughout this entire game. And really, it sucks to say because the Celtics end up winning in overtime, which that's going to be a whole nother issue we get to in this post game. But the Celtics win this game, and a win is a win. But the way the Celtics played against their opponent, this is an opponent in which you should come out, no matter who is out on the floor, with the Celtics, with how they've been playing as of late. They need to come out with energy. They need to come out with intensity. They need to come out with the mentality of, yes, we should go out there and win this game. That's exactly what we should do. But in doing that, we have to do it with pride. We have to do it with energy. We have to do it with intensity. We have to get ourselves back on track from where we were and where we still are really in the month of January in terms of the Boston Celtics going back and forth, winning a good game, losing a bad game, winning a good game, losing a bad game. The Celtics cannot get it going right now in the month of January whatsoever. And tonight should have been an opportunity for the Boston Celtics. They look at it and go, yes, we should beat this Clippers team. But at the same time, we actually have to come out and establish ourselves. And really what's so frustrating about this recent Celtics stretch is we've seen games. We've seen stretches where the Celtics can do it, whether it's in specific quarters, specific halves, or even games. We saw it in the Orlando Magic game, and then we didn't see it against the Atlanta Hawks. And then we saw it against the Golden State Warriors, and now we don't see it tonight against the LA Clippers. Specifically that Warriors game, every single Celtics player came out onto the floor thinking, we're playing the Warriors. This is a finals rematch from 2 years ago. Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, they're out there. Draymond Green was, of course, not out there on the floor because he was ruled out that game. But everybody else who's on the Golden State Warriors, the Celtics saw that matchup on MLK Day, primetime game, TNT, in the middle of the afternoon. Wasn't a late game out in San Francisco. And they went, we are coming to play. We just flew coast to coast. We are coming out and we are destroying the Golden State Warriors, not only on the offensive end of the floor, scoring 125, but defensively as well, holding the Warriors to only 85 points. We will have a play breakdown coming out on that later in time, as it's already been recorded. It just hasn't been released on YouTube yet. But that game, the Celtics come out with intensity, come out with energy, punch the Warriors in the mouth, specifically late in the first quarter, into the second quarter, follows it up into the third quarter after half, and then the game, everybody's resting in the fourth quarter. Coming into this game, that's exactly how this should have played out. The Clippers threw a punch early, no doubt about that, 34 points in the first quarter. But after that, and even during the first quarter, the Celtics should have been able to respond and put this game away late. And that gets me to the next point here is the Celtics, they didn't put this game away late when it was in their pocket. First of all, the Celtics lost 2 quarters in this game. They lost the first quarter. They lost the third quarter. They were up by 1 going into halftime. 1 point going into halftime after you're up 15 against the Golden State Warriors the other night. And there's a way more quality of a squad in the Golden State Warriors, I'll add as well. Tonight, the Celtics had to win the fourth quarter. So there was no resting in the fourth quarter whatsoever for the Boston Celtics at all. The Celtics, they had to come out and win the fourth quarter. Luckily, the Celtics did win the fourth quarter, but at a certain point in time, the Celtics were up 4. They were up 4 with less than 20 seconds left. 4. This happened the other day against the Atlanta Hawks. This should be 4 straight wins for the Boston Celtics. It should be. And fortunately, we're talking about 3 out of the last 4. So that's a positive note for the Boston Celtics, no doubt. But this should be 4 straight wins. The Celtics can just handle their business. Not in overtime. Not in overtime. You could say that against the Atlanta Hawks, but late in the fourth quarter. Details. Hitting free throws. Details against the Atlanta Hawks. It was, missed free throws. Missed opportunities at the rim. Passing out, turnover, fouling at the wrong time. And then tonight, we're up 2 with the ball with less than 20 seconds left. The Celtics are up 2 with the ball. Jaylen Brown's double team. And what does he do? Throws the ball away. Clippers running in transition. Derrick Jones Jr., high flyer, going straight to the rim, lays it up and in, and it's a tie ball game. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And even the play before that, nobody's really going to speak on this, but I'm going to speak on this. The play before that, you're up 4, and what happens is, we're not going to give up a 3 here. We're not going to give up a 3, or we're just don't give up a bucket. How about that? Because it was a wide open drive to the rim by Amir Coffey. Wide open. It was wide open. And that's the Celtics were up 4. The Clippers had the ball. Celtics up 4. All that needed to happen is either one more defensive stop or, okay, you allow them to score 2. Now you're hitting free throws. Inbound the ball. They're going to double. Hold on to the ball. All right, hold on to the ball. Let them foul you because the seconds are going to tick away. There's less than 20 seconds left in the game. Hit your free throws. Instead, the Celtics, they allow a quick bucket. It was a quick bucket for Amir Coffey going down the lane for 2. That's what happened. And then the Celtics, it's a 2-point game. Celtics with the ball, still very much in control. Jaylen Brown double teamed, throws it in the middle of the floor. Derrick Jones Jr. intercepts the ball like a safety. I mean, it was like watching a high school game. It was like watching a college game. These are the type of things you see at the end of college games with kids. It really is. And the Boston Celtics, these are the kind of mistakes they're committing at the end of ball games right now. And really, I saw this game as an opportunity for the Celtics to actually execute down the stretch and close a game out like this. And yes, you look at the rest of the game and go, well, they didn't play well the rest of the game, and you lead to the point of, okay, well, we're facing, we got to take care of the details. We got to take care of business late in game. That's the Celtics didn't play well the rest of the game. Yet I still saw it as an opportunity as, oh, we didn't play well the rest of the game, but it set us up with an opportunity to really hit home at the details and close out this game the way we know we should. And ultimately, that's a big theme right now because you saw the other night against the Atlanta Hawks, that game went in overtime. That game shouldn't have gone in overtime. And the Celtics could have still won in overtime. They couldn't make a stop. And tonight, 20 seconds left, up 4. I'm going, nice. We get another opportunity to close this out. Very much in control, but we're going to have a little bit of a redemption opportunity here with this exact scenario. That's not what happens. That's not what happens at all. The Boston Celtics, they're up 4. You're thinking, okay, this game should be over, but you still have to execute. You still have to hit your free throws. You still have to inbound the ball. You still have to make another stop. It's not what happened. That's not what happened. And it's frustrating because this is a championship level ball club. It just is. Look at the talent on the floor. Look at their ability when they're on their best runs, the Boston Celtics. And right now, they're not playing up to that standard. Nobody is. Nobody on the team. Nobody. And it's frustrating. I shouldn't even single it out individually saying nobody because it's the team collectively. It is the team. And it's frustrating because eventually you have to start building those good habits. And right now, we're just inching closer and closer to All-Star break. And those good habits are just going by the wayside to the Boston Celtics inconsistently, or rather consistently. They're consistently inconsistent, the Celtics are right now. And we saw it in this game tonight. We did. The Clippers beat the Celtics in the paint. The Clippers shot over 50% on the Celtics for the night. And that really highlights the lack of defense for the Boston Celtics in this particular matchup. And even looking at the lead tracker here for this game, I mean, what's this? When you talk about consistently inconsistent, this is what it looks like for the Boston Celtics. Oh, lead early and you give it up. Are we going to surmount another lead? And no, we're going to give it up. No. And the Clippers are coming back. A lead to start the fourth quarter. Celtics dig themselves out of a hole. But look at that. I mean, look at that. Now, I will say the biggest lead was only 7 for the Celtics tonight and 6 for the Clippers. So it's not like you're looking at huge margins here like on other nights. That can be a little deceiving. But look at that. Look at the drop right before overtime. This should be a win for the Boston Celtics. This should be a game where the Celtics late in the game start running away with it, and that's it. That's it. But I also do want to point out for this game, because you got to do this as a basketball fan, 25 lead changes, tied 16 times. The longest run was 13. That was from the Celtics in the fourth quarter, where the Clippers didn't score for quite some time. Biggest lead, only 7 for the Celtics, 6 for the Clippers. This is just a good basketball game for any basketball fan to watch. Celtics fan, Clippers fan, forget it. If you're an NBA fan, basketball fan, this was a great game to view because it was close the entire way, went back and forth, went into overtime. You didn't quite know who was going to win. You assumed the Boston Celtics, they were going to pull it out. But ultimately, it was a good basketball game. So, in terms of the entertainment aspect of the NBA and watching a good basketball game late in the evening on the East Coast, of course, I'm in Central Time. That's why I'm on here tonight. Everybody else on the post game on the East Coast, I shouldn't say every Celtics fan, but not every Celtics fan. Most Celtics fans are on the East Coast. If they stayed up late to watch this one, they saw a good ball game. That's at least the silver lining here. Again, another silver lining. Celtics won this game as well. But the play in this game was just not up to par for the Boston Celtics. There was a lot of shot chucking. We've talked about the Celtics shot chucking a lot this season where, yes, the Celtics want to take a high volume of threes. They just do. That's what their philosophy is. There are a lot of shooters on the team. This Joe Mazzulla ball, as it's been termed in the past. But what the Celtics want to do with those high volume amount of threes is take good threes. And really what that means is you're going downhill aggressively, collapsing a defense, forcing a defense to help, forcing a defense to make decisions between two guys, creating yourself options, whether it's Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, whoever it is at the rim, and then on the perimeter, you're passing the ball out, and then you're kicking it around the perimeter to get the best shot, whether that's off the first pass, that pass out, or the hockey assist from there. And you're skipping it around, you're making that extra pass. The Celtics, that's when they're creating their highest quality of threes and their highest quality of looks on the night. That's what the Celtics are best at doing. That's what they were best at doing all season last year. What's so frustrating is this season, it feels like the Celtics are less inclined to do that. And what they're more inclined to do is just jack off the catch, jack off the dribble. That's what the Celtics want to do. They dribble up the floor. Oh, one pass, three, goodbye. And we've talked about it. It is annoying. It's annoying to see because when this team is running as a collective unit and as a cohesive unit and they're attacking downhill and doing what they need to do in order to create those high quality looks, they decide to create lower quality looks by the shots they're taking off of simple decisions like, oh, one pass, boom, shooting it. That's not what the Celtics need. No drive, shooting it. 8 seconds or less, shoot it. We don't need to see that out of the Celtics. There was a lot of that tonight, unfortunately, for the Boston Celtics. There's been a lot of that in the month of January for the Boston Celtics. And really, we've seen the correlation of when that is happening for the Celtics. Yeah, that's when they're shooting sub 30%. Now, tonight they shot 38%. They shot much, much better down the stretch than they did to start this game. The Celtics did. So if you want to take a silver lining is out of this game again, another one, it's that late in the game, the Celtics were able to create more of those looks. And we'll also get to a certain player on the top of the screen who actually contributed to that quite a bit. But ultimately, the Celtics, when they're creating those good looks, that's when they're shooting a high percentage from three. Everybody, this is what's sort of annoying about the conversation of the Boston Celtics. People just look at their shooting numbers and go, they're making or they're missing shots. The Celtics, they're shooting low 30s, sub 30% in the month of January and even December. That's why they're losing so much. That's why they're losing every other game, because they're just shooting terribly. They can't make threes. Their shooting percentage. Look at why that shooting percentage is the way it is. That's my biggest pet peeve when people analyze the Celtics and say, oh, well, the shooting percentage is, they just can't make a shot. No, it's not that they can't make a shot. They're taking terrible shots. That's what it is. There's a difference between taking a good look and a bad look. There just is. And it really comes within the whole formation of the offense. And I already talked about it. It's about getting downhill, collapsing the defense. You're talking about them trying to help off of the collapse because Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're ferocious going downhill on the attack. You're forcing that help to come over. When that help comes over, there's going to be somebody wide open on the perimeter. When you have the defense scrambling, there's going to be somebody wide open. That's going to be a high quality look. The high quality looks are not coming off of dribbling up the floor and throwing up a 3-point shot. Or, nobody's moving. We've seen this a lot this month too. Nobody's moving within the offense. The offense is completely stagnant, and Peyton Pritchard's going one-on-one step back three. Jason Tatum one-on-one step back three. That's not going to work. It's not going to work long term. Those are the terrible shots. They're just terrible. And what's odd too is I shouldn't say it's odd because people just get wrapped up in all the numbers and don't actually look at the film of what's going on sometimes. I can understand that from a fan's perspective. But 2 years ago, 21-22, that is what changed within the entire Celtics season. If anybody remembers, the Celtics started that season 18-21 on January 6th of 2022 after the Celtics lost to the Knicks off of an RJ Barrett buzzer beater. That was rock bottom for that season. The Celtics were 18-21. They were 11th in the Eastern Conference. Eventually, the Celtics finished 51-31, second in the Eastern Conference, and even grabbed the 1 seed at one point in time before falling back down to that 2nd seed to end the year. They went 11th to 1st in 21-22. And to start the season, the Celtics were running lineups out there with Marcus Smart, Josh Richardson, Dennis Schroeder, and then Brown and Tatum. That Horford was on that team, of course, Grant Williams, Robert Williams as well. Peyton Pritchard was also on that squad. But that team didn't mesh well together. And teams could defend a lineup with Schroeder and Smart in it and Richardson because they didn't respect those guys from three. And Tatum and Brown, they were not as seasoned as they are today. But what happened later on in the season? First of all, Ime Udoka made the decision of, well, Schroeder and Smart, they're not going to be playing with each other all the time because those two were ball handlers and they weren't exactly catch and shoot players. And one of those guys off the ball was not being utilized on the offensive end of the floor. And there was a lot of, too, in that team, a lot of dribbling into nowhere at times, just dribbling into absolutely nowhere with no intent. What happened in the second half of the season is the Celtics, the philosophy changed. Schroeder and Marcus Smart didn't play together. Schroeder was traded away from the team. And not for Derek White, but Derek White was traded to the Boston Celtics from the San Antonio Spurs. And it changed the entire dynamic of the Boston Celtics. They went from creating terrible looks, low quality shots from the floor from three early on in the season to creating high quality looks later on in the season. And that is what changed for the Boston Celtics. The offense changed. It was Tatum, Brown heading downhill. You have White off the catch. You see, White is still around today. It's what he does it well. We've seen him do it well. And he was part of that squad, and he was a great off-ball player. Whereas Smart and Schroeder and Richardson, they didn't really operate that well off-ball. They all needed the ball in their hands, and they didn't really quite do the job well when they're all on the floor together because, oh, this guy needs the ball in his hands and this guy needs the ball in his hands. He's not a catch and shoot player. Well, he's going to be ineffective off the ball. And what happened in that season was once Ime Udoka broke that up, right, and then Brad Stevens eventually broke that up at the trade deadline, the entirety of the Celtics offense changed because then you were inserting players into the lineup who could play off ball. It made sense with the entire lineup. And that's when the Celtics started to gain more high quality looks. And that's when defenses could not defend the Boston Celtics as well. That's what happened in 21-22. And to the point here is this season, it is going along with this season's theme as well. And I'll say it's much different dynamic from the standpoint of you're not playing Schroeder and Marcus Smart together, and that's not really the problem here. The problem is the quality of looks. That's the problem. And that's the point here, is that in 21-22, what turned around for the Celtics is the quality of looks. The Celtics are facing, I don't want to say a much more daunting task now with this team in terms of quality of looks, because they have the personnel in order to create those high quality looks, as we saw last season. The problem is right now, it's the decision making. It's the decision making. It's not the personnel on the floor. 21-22, that was the personnel problem. It just was. Once the personnel changed, once the lineups changed, once the rotations changed, everything changed for the Boston Celtics in terms of the low quality and high quality looks. This year, the low quality looks are not coming off of rotations. They're not coming off of the lineups out there. They're coming off of bad decisions by the Boston Celtics. And that's what's kind of concerning about this Celtics team. And one could be more pessimistic and optimistic about it because on one hand, you could be a pessimist and say, well, bad decision making, when is that going to turn around? And is that just going to be a flaw of this team moving forward? They won the championship last year. All of a sudden, they're loosey-goosey with the details on both ends of the floor, and specifically offensively. They maybe have too big of a head, too confident in themselves at times, and they're not running the offense in full. You can be a pessimistic person on that side or an optimistic person on the other side and go, well, if this is a mentality thing and it's not a personnel thing, there doesn't need to be a move made, essentially. Those guys, we just saw them do it last season. Why can't they do it again this season? So it is an interesting conversation with the Boston Celtics in terms of shot quality. We saw terrible shot quality at the beginning of this game. Tonight, all right shot quality at the end. It wasn't all peaches and cream, but it was a lot better, I would say, in the fourth quarter when the Celtics were making the run. And then, of course, in overtime as well. What's so confusing is the Celtics, they know how to get good shots. And right before that overtime period, the Celtics had the ball, 4 seconds left for the win. And Jason Tatum comes into him. He's at an awkward angle, double teamed. Ball goes over to White, blocked. How do we not have a better play on that opportunity? It doesn't make sense that Jason Tatum, he gets the ball every single time. And it feels like, yes, okay, he had that one game winner this season, but the Jason Tatum game winner allegations, I don't know if he's ever beaten him. Maybe that one Raptors performance, that one game earlier this season beat him. Not sure for the just gauging the fan base out there. But it feels like every time Tatum gets the ball anywhere in the mid range, whether it's on the high post, whether it's in the short corner, if it's in either of those spots with the game on the line, it feels like Jason Tatum is always going to end up with the most awkward opportunity, the awkward shot, the most awkward shot that he can. And that's what happened with the Boston Celtics tonight. And it goes along with the shot quality and the shot opportunity as well. But getting on to more individual matters with the Boston Celtics, we've been talking a lot about the team, talking about shot quality with this squad. And we'll talk a little bit more about the defense later on in time. But really, we have to highlight a player who was all defense tonight. And you see him here on the top of the screen. And really, this is going to be an unconventional player spotlight, but we have to give it to him because without this specific player, I don't know if the Celtics win this ball game. And it's Mr. Jaden Springer. Jaden Springer, your SeatGeek player spotlight tonight, of course. CTW player spotlight brought to you by SeatGeek. Go use our code, of course, Celtics Weekly, for a percentage off of your first purchase at SeatGeek. So don't forget to check SeatGeek out. But Jaden Springer, oh my goodness, where has he been this whole entire season? Now, I'll say this about Jaden Springer. Offensively, you see these numbers: 8 points, 2 of 6 from the floor, 2 of 6 from three, took all of his attempts from three. Don't pay attention to the offensive numbers or even the numbers for Jaden Springer unless you want to look at those 4 steals right there, because that's where the impact of Jaden Springer was felt the most tonight, is on the defensive end of the floor. And this is what Celtics Nation and even Sixers Nation as well, a lot of people in Philadelphia were not happy when Jaden Springer was traded away from the Sixers to the Celtics. But they all knew, everybody knows, Jaden Springer's best attribute, best ability out on the floor is his defensive presence, his defensive prowess on ball and even off ball. And my goodness, 4 steals tonight for Jaden Springer. I mean, it was almost like I don't know what to compare this with, but you see Steph Curry coming to a game, hit a couple threes. That's what it felt like with Jaden Springer on the defensive end of the floor tonight, just coming in and just swiping the ball all over the place, swiping it. And Jaden Springer, if he doesn't play late in this game, I don't know if the Celtics win this ball game. Came up with a lot of key turnovers for the Boston Celtics, and of course, hit maybe the biggest shot of the entire game for Boston down the stretch. As you see, Jaden Springer hits the shot, looks back at the Clippers bench. You saw James Harden, Norman Powell really trying to take him off his shot over in the corner three, whatever level you're playing at, high school, college, even the pros next to the bench there. It's one of the hardest 3-point shot. I shouldn't say it's the hardest 3-point shot to hit, because actually it's the most efficient shot in basketball. But at the same time, in terms of the difficulty of 3-point shots, you have the entire bench, you have the entire student section, whatever level you're playing at. That corner three is always pressurized because you're doing it right in front of people who want to see you miss and are just making the most audacious noises in the world in order for you to miss. And Jaden Springer, you saw Harden Harden's sitting back right here. He's standing up on this opportunity, and he was yelling in Jaden Springer's ear. Norman Powell as well. You see Mo Bamba right there, Nicholas Batum and Chris Dunn, and even Kawhi Leonard there at the end of the bench. All the guys out for the Clippers tonight. But Jaden Springer, he has all those guys in his ear on the bench. You even see former Celtics executive last year, Jeff Van Gundy, and former, of course, head coach in the NBA over there as well. He's probably given him a little bit of something as well. And Jaden Springer just looks on back to the Clippers bench. This is one of the best feelings in all of basketball right here, is when everybody's yelling at you in the corner and you just drain that corner three, especially in this type of game situation where it's basically for the win. Jaden Springer, this three pretty much closed out the game. The Clippers were doubling everybody on this possession, even possessions before, just leaving Jaden Springer wide open. Ball comes over to Jaden Springer. Jaden Springer cashes in a 3-point shot, essentially for the win, and then looks back at the Clippers bench and even gave him a little bit of a smile. You could tell he had a kiddish like smile on his face after this opportunity. When you're sitting on the bench that long, if you're Jaden Springer and then come into the ball game, play how you did defensively and do this, I mean, he's going to bed happy in Los Angeles tonight. And even looking back at this player graphic again, 8 points, 2 rebounds, 4 steals for Jaden Springer, 2 of 6 from the floor. Much deserved player spotlight for Jaden Springer. And really, this is what we've been talking about this season with the Boston Celtics as of late, is can you get a spark out of somebody else right now? Now, tonight, didn't mention this, but we're going to mention it now. No Kristaps Porzingis tonight. No Al Horford tonight. First night of a back-to-back. Tomorrow night's game will be against the Los Angeles Lakers, so you'd have to assume that is the reason. Both of them will likely play tomorrow against the Lakers. A little bit bigger of a matchup tonight. Nobody's really playing with the Clippers. Tonight, the Celtics are obviously able to handle business in a less than ideal way against the Clippers without Horford and Porzingis, but also Holiday was out tonight. So you'd think all three of those players were resting for the Boston Celtics. And with all of those guys out of the lineup, the Celtics, they needed to find a spark. And even with all those guys in the lineup, we've been talking about, can Joe Mazzulla find a spark somewhere else? Can he tinker the rotations at the end of the rotations? Because Sam Hauser, thankfully, finally had a great shooting night tonight, 5 of 7 from the floor for Sam Hauser, 15 points on the night. But Sam Hauser has been nearly unplayable as of late. Nearly unplayable. You think about his shooting as of late, going 0-4, dropping eggs from the floor, and defensively, Sam Hauser is really not the best defensive player in the entire world. And you're questioning, if you're a Celtics fan and anybody in Celtics Nation, going, why is Sam Hauser playing right now? He can't hit shots, number one. His biggest attribute is hitting shots. He can't do that. And defensively, he can be a liability at times. So what exactly is the upside of playing Sam Hauser over, say, a guy like Jordan Walsh, who the Jordan Walsh experience up to this point, his jumper actually looked great tonight, and it's looked great ever since preseason. We've been talking about Jordan Walsh's jump shot looking really pure, really silky smooth since preseason. And Jordan Walsh, we look at him and go, okay, his best attribute is actually on the defensive end of the floor. Offensively, he might be able to come in and do something in terms of hitting an open catch and shoot three from the corner, from the wing, doing something, not doing much with the ball in his hands whatsoever. Not a threat from that standpoint. But a lot of people are questioning, including us on here, maybe Walsh over Hauser right now for that rotation spot. But even looking further, Tillman, he hasn't played at all this season. And even going down the line, Baylor Shireman. Baylor Shireman played early in this game tonight. Can he give you a spark? But then Jaden Springer. How about Jaden Springer? Now, offensively, he can be just complete zero at times, and we're going to talk about that in a second here. But defensively, Jaden Springer is a hound dog. Jaden Springer can get out there and really defend. And tonight, that is what we saw. We saw, number one, Walsh out there. We saw Shireman out there early, and Jaden Springer. But Jaden Springer was the player who gave the Celtics their bounce. And really, I do want to say their momentum down the stretch. He's what gave the Celtics the ability to actually pull this game out and win. The Celtics, of course, had to execute with all of the main players, whether it was Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, in this matchup late down the stretch, specifically those three players, and even Peyton Pritchard as well. But Jaden Springer on the defensive end of the floor, doing what he did, allowed the Celtics to do what they did on the offensive end of the floor. And of course, Jaden Springer, you saw that 3-point shot, that screenshot. he contributed his part on the offensive end late in this game when he hit that three essentially for the win. I know people will say, oh, well, Kata actually hit the layup for the win down the stretch, but that Springer three was just as massive as that Kata game closing layup. And this is what we want to see, even with Kristaps, even with Drew, even with Al in the lineup, is Joe Mazzulla on some occasions when the Celtics just don't have it. Because we talked about this with the Clippers. The Clippers were playing a bunch of players who were excited to play tonight, excited to play in their roles. The Celtics, sometimes it doesn't look like they're excited at all to play. You think about the Raptors game, we're just beating a dead horse on that game right now because that was a terrible game. It was the worst game of the season for the Boston Celtics after they just put up their worst game against the Sacramento Kings 2 games prior. It's going to be like the second half of Oklahoma City. Y'all know I couldn't come on here without mentioning the second half against Oklahoma City or the Toronto game now. That's becoming the other one for the Boston Celtics, but specifically that Toronto game. Going back and looking at that game, the Celtics did not have any intensity or effort on the defensive end of the floor, completely going through the motions, not just defensively, but offensively as well. And in those games, when all the starters don't seem to have it going at all in terms of just effort, I mean, forget all the X's and O's, effort on the floor. Maybe you go to a guy like Jordan Walsh. Maybe you go to a guy like Baylor Shireman. Or maybe you go to a guy like Jaden Springer, who tonight pretty much won this ball game for the Boston Celtics. You're not going to see it in his offensive numbers or anything fancy like that. But my goodness, defensively, 4 steals, and nobody was getting past him. His activity on ball, his active hands, his ability to stay in front of his opponent 1v1, and even his off-ball defense too, just helping on different opportunities. Jaden Springer, he deserves player spotlight tonight. There's no doubt about it. And we were actually going to do it for Justin Flowers when we were trying to fumble around with player of the game, Jaylen Brown. It was going to be Jaylen Brown at first, but then he just had a terrible end of the game and really didn't help the Celtics whatsoever down the stretch. And it had to be Jaden Springer who did. Unfortunately, we actually don't have a Justin Flowers out here tonight. We might have to do another breakdown on it. Not sure. Just disclaimer for the time being. Justin's not here anyway. He can give his flowers out when he's here. Maybe tomorrow night against the Lakers. We'll see. But Jaden Springer, he could have won flowers. He won player spotlight. If I'm going to give my flowers out tonight, I think we all know who I really want to give my flowers out to out there right now, of course. But Jaden Springer also deserves some flowers as well for what he did with the Boston Celtics tonight. And Jaden Springer won this game essentially for the Boston Celtics late in the fourth quarter and down the stretch because Joe Mazzulla at a certain point in time couldn't take him out of the game. Couldn't. This is what we want to see out of the Celtics. We want to see, or really out of the Celtics coaching staff, Joe Mazzulla, and the Celtics coaching staff, of course, that on opportunities and occasions where the Celtics don't look all that there with their effort, put in a player who's going to be excited to play. Peyton Pritchard is that player every single night. Peyton Pritchard is just yearning for more minutes every single night. And tonight, Peyton Pritchard did not have a good game whatsoever. I'll say that about P. But Peyton Pritchard, he's always bringing the energy out there. He is always fighting on the floor. That is the consistent presence of Peyton Pritchard. But all these other guys on the bench, they're not going to be consistent rotation players. They're not going to be players who are just going to swing the entire season. But can they swing a game like tonight? Can they swing a little stretch that puts the Celtics over the top? The answer is yes, and we saw it tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers. Jaden Springer came into the game and affected late in the game, that stretch late in the game, and then the entire game, the entire result for the Boston Celtics. And if the Celtics lose this one, I don't know what we would have been saying in this postgame, because the Celtics, that would have been every other game, winning, losing in the month of January after a 40-point win. I mean, it's the definition of insanity, what we were talking about with Franco the other night. You win big against the Magic, then you drop an overtime game against the Hawks, and then you win big against the Warriors. And if you would have dropped tonight an overtime game against the Clippers, you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again if you're the Boston Celtics. Seriously. And that's The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. If you're specifically a basketball team, you're the Boston Celtics. They've been defining insanity this month. Yet tonight, because Jaden Springer comes into the game, the Celtics, they're not on that streak now. They've won back-to-back games for the first time in nearly a month. And this is what we want to see. We want to see that spark off the bench. These guys, like I said, Walsh, Shireman, Springer, they're not going to be, even Kada. We're not mentioning Kada, but Kada as well. He's been that player. We'll mention Tillman too. Tillman hasn't been that player at all this season. Kada more so. We talked about Cornette, who actually started tonight, but Cornette can be that player as well. Any of these players, if they can come in and provide a spark for even just the littlest of stretches, that can flip a game, and that can flip an entire stretch for the Boston Celtics in terms of wins and losses, as we saw tonight. So great job from Jaden Springer on the defensive end of the floor tonight, hitting a big shot down the stretch as well. And great job for Joe Mazzulla, on actually trusting Jaden Springer to keep him in the ball game, not going with somebody else when he knew Jaden Springer had the hot hand defensively, and also just experimenting with some of these other guys like Walsh and Shireman early in the game when this was really the opportunity to do so for the Boston Celtics. And yes, the Celtics going back on the team perspective, because Jaden Springer certainly deserved a lot of praise. But the team defensively, Jaden Springer was phenomenal defensively tonight, but the entire team defensively from the get-go of this game, rough. I mean, I don't. This is what we talk about with these role players in terms of coming in and bringing a spark and some effort in. Is we talked about it on the Golden State Warriors post-game show the other night when the Celtics played the Warriors. Effort is going to show most in the defense, on the defensive end of the floor, that is. Effort's going to show most defensively. Offensively, you can sometimes get by hitting a couple bad shots. That's just what it is on the offensive end of the floor. You can take bad shots, you can make bad shots. That's what it can be. And coaches, it drives them crazy because a player will take a bad shot, hit a bad shot, and coaches will go, all right, that was a terrible opportunity, a terrible attempt, but you made it. But it was a terrible attempt, but you made it. Offensively, you can sometimes get past on terrible opportunities, terrible attempts. Defensively, you're not gonna skip the effort part. If the effort isn't out there, you're not gonna get past it. You're just not. You're not gonna get past the terrible opportunities you give up on the defensive end of the floor. If your effort isn't there in a ball game, defensively, a team is just gonna have wide open layups, wide open cuts to the lane, wide open threes on the perimeter. And that's what we saw out of the Los Angeles Clippers and the Boston Celtics tonight in terms of defense. Well, I should say the Celtics defense defending the Los Angeles Clippers tonight. The Clippers, especially early on in this game, cutting hard, cutting with energy, cutting with intensity. And then, of course, too, going downhill towards the lane, going towards the bucket. Every player in the Clippers, like I mentioned, was a star at some point in time. It's not like they're completely inept and going downhill, getting a layup, or going and cutting to the rim, receiving a pass, or even dishing out a pass and finishing for two. These players are NBA players. It's the highest level of basketball. And the Clippers tonight, they were early on bringing the energy to the Celtics. They were cutting hard. They were going downhill hard. And the Celtics, they were just kind of going through the motions out there at times. They just were. And yes, you could say they were without three great defensive players, Holiday, Horford, Porzingis. No doubt about it. No doubt. That's fair. But even without those players, the Celtics, they need to be bringing their effort defensively. Cornette was still out there. We've been highlighting Cornette's defensive ability as of late. He had 6 stocks the other night. And for those who don't know stocks, it's steals and blocks. He had 4 steals, 2 blocks the other night against the Atlanta Hawks. Cornette's still out there if you're the Boston Celtics. Sam Hauser has been better defensively. Not the best defensive player, but he's been better. We actually saw it in the Golden State Warriors game. But you still have players out there if you're the Boston Celtics, like Jaden Springer, of course, came into the game. Walsh came to the game. That can still defend. And if you're putting on this type of performance. And let's not skip over the most important players too. Pritchard, White, Tatum, Brown. Those guys can all defend. There's no reason the Celtics should have came out tonight and just been giving up the buckets they did early on in this game. And really early on, you could think, maybe that's a little bit excusable if you're the Boston Celtics, because Clippers are going to come out with energy. Oh, they give you a punch in the mouth. But then after that, settle into the game. It never happened. First quarter, punched in the mouth, and the bleeding just continued for the Boston Celtics until late in the game, thankfully, allowing only 19 points in the fourth quarter. But throughout the game, the Los Angeles Clippers were just able to get two easy opportunities out of the Celtics throughout the night, whether that was from the perimeter, whether that was going downhill, finding an open layup, whether that was cutting to the rim, finding an open two from there. There are a couple lobs in this game that really got the Clippers going. The Celtics defense, we talked about against the Warriors. That's a part of their game that really, that's what they're going to need to hone in on. And we're going to come out with the play breakdown a little later here this evening. It's already filmed, so it's in the works. Just kind of clip it up and whatnot, release it. It's about the Celtics' defensive effort against the Golden State Warriors. Tonight, the defensive effort, it wasn't always there. It just wasn't always there. The Clippers, they found easy opportunities from the floor too many times. And even some of the tough shots, right? People will term it, oh, well, they're hitting tough shots. Sure, that's also fair about the Clippers. But some of these tough shots were not all that contested. In terms of those players getting into their shots, it wasn't tough for them to actually get that look. It's like, oh, it's a tough look because it's coming over Pritchard, it's coming over Tatum or Brown right here, and it's contested. But in terms of the physicality for that player to actually get there, they weren't swarmed getting there. Like, oh, I'm able to get my shot. It's a little contested here, but I'm able to get to my spot. And that's part of the defensive issue with the Boston Celtics as of late. There's just too much allowing of players getting to their spots, players getting downhill, players just getting to where they want to go. Period. That's what's so frustrating is against the Warriors, that wasn't the case. That was not the case against the Warriors the other night at all. The Celtics were being physical, not letting the Warriors go anywhere they wanted to go. And yet they come out in a game tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers, and that's the case. The Celtics just, I guess you can go here. I guess you can go there. And it's frustrating with this Boston Celtics squad at this point in time. It just is. It just is. The month of January has not been kind to the Boston Celtics at all. They've really been a 500 team this entire month, and this is the first time they've won back-to-back games this month. 117 to 113 tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers. And it's their defense. Offensively, the shot chucking. That's what it is for the Boston Celtics. And really, this goes into the conversation now of what are we expecting tomorrow night against the Los Angeles Lakers? The second night of a back-to-back. Celtics not flying from city to city. They'll be in the same city. But as we know, being in the same city hasn't always mattered for the Boston Celtics in terms of back-to-backs, because we just saw a back-to-back game against the Magic on Friday, the Hawks on Saturday, back-to-back at home, players sleeping in their own beds. They're not sleeping at the Ritz-Carlton like they probably are tonight. But on that occasion, the Celtics come out in the second night and drop a dud. First quarter was good. Second quarter was awful. Third quarter, strong into the third. Terrible start to the half. And then just terrible. I mean, it was a great start to the fourth quarter in that game. Terrible end to the fourth. Terrible start to overtime and end of overtime. Just terrible overtime. What are we expecting out of the Celtics tomorrow against the Los Angeles Lakers? And really today. I mean, you really look at the calendar, you look at the clock. It's really today. The game is later today, second night of a back-to-back, because we're really late here, even in the Central Time Zone right now. What are we expecting from the Boston Celtics against the Lakers now? Because even in this game, the Celtics win, but they don't do it in good fashion whatsoever. And we're still on the topic of inconsistency. And it's really this entire post-game show. I've been rambling on about the Boston Celtics, and most of it has been negative. Really. In a win. It sounded if you were to just take off the score at the bottom, right? Take off all these graphics, all right? Take off the ticker. If you're just listening to me talk about this Boston Celtics game without the result, you wouldn't know that they won tonight. And that's how it felt. They won the game, but it feels like they easily could have lost. And that they almost did almost lost this game. They almost did lose, that is. The Celtics, even in this win, you 3 out of the last 4 have been wins. That is a silver lining. That's good for the Boston Celtics, okay? Like, this could be the turning point of the Boston Celtics, that Magic game, and then going ahead, you win these next couple games if you're the Boston Celtics, win tomorrow against the Los Angeles Lakers, win the finals rematch, then you're talking about, 4 straight wins, 5 out of the last 6. That Magic game was kind of the turning point where the Celtics kind of turned it around. And the one game you lost was that overtime game against the Atlanta Hawks where you fumbled the bag down the stretch. If you're the Boston Celtics, sure, you could talk yourself into that if you're the Boston Celtics and the fan base, if that transpires. And that's the turning point, still could be. But the quality of this game tonight really indicates more inconsistency for the Boston Celtics. Straight up. It just does. It's sad, but that's the case here. You play well against the Orlando Magic. And actually, let's go back even further. Okay? Let's go back further than that. All right? Coming off let's see here. Going back to the Sacramento Kings game, but then I don't remember what game was before the Sacramento game. It was the Denver game. Okay? West Coast road trip. Let's go back to when the Celtics actually won 2 in a row last time. Going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You win 2 in a row. The Minnesota game, this is what's just going to highlight all this inconsistency. The Minnesota game, the Celtics, if they make one less 3, allow one more 3, that's a loss. Okay, the Celtics got lucky. They gave Anthony Edwards an opportunity, a wide open opportunity to tie the game to go into overtime down the stretch. Anthony Edwards misses the shot. Celtics come out with a win by the skin of their teeth in Minnesota. Great, by 3 points. That was a great, hard-fought win regardless. Good win for the Boston Celtics. You needed that one. And it was coming off the New Year's Eve game as well, where you dominated the Toronto Raptors. But if you even want to go back farther, it's domination against the Pacers. Then it's you lose to the Pacers the next 2 nights later. You dominate the Toronto Raptors. And then it's a lesser game against the Timberwolves, but you still needed that one, still won that one, nearly lost that. Then you go against the Rockets, and the Rockets game, everybody looks at that as a great game, and it was a great game for the Boston Celtics, but at the same time, because they came out in that game and they executed and achieved the result in which they wanted to achieve, but at the same time, the Boston Celtics, they were facing a Rockets team without Amin Thompson, Tari East, and Jabari Smith Jr. Those are 3 of the Rockets' best defending forwards, and when you're missing all of your wings, that's one of the toughest ordeals to get over in basketball. If you're missing all your bigs or you're missing all your wings or even all your ball handlers, it's going to be something tough to get over. And the Rockets were missing all their wings that game. Celtics blow out the Rockets in Houston. That's back-to-back wins, all right. But the first one wasn't all that great. Second one, much better, again, against a lesser opponent. And then you go to Oklahoma City, come out strong in that game, but the second half is terrible, and we're just going to keep mentioning that because it was terrible in that game. You scored 27 points in the second half. Just one of the most awful performances in a half of even Celtics history, forget this season. After that game, you go to Denver. The Denver game, the Boston Celtics come out strong. The middle of the game, the Denver Nuggets come back, and it looks like even the Nuggets might have some momentum to pull that game out. But then the Celtics, they go on a run down the stretch. I believe it was I won't put a number. I think it was a 12-0 run. I'll put a number on it anyway. Down the stretch, and the Celtics pull that game out by double digits. But Justin's mentioned, we've all mentioned in here before, that game, yeah, was a double-digit win. Didn't really feel like a double-digit win because Celtics had to pull it out down the stretch, and they had to go on a run to solidify that win. Otherwise, the Nuggets were right there with them. After that game, you come home against the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings absolutely blow out the Celtics in the fourth quarter. The Celtics allow 38 points to the Sacramento Kings in the fourth quarter. And then moving further, on in time, that Sunday game against the Pelicans. Pelicans a much better team than the record indicated in that game. Came into that game with 8 wins on the season, but the Pelicans, they were a much better team. They're getting healthier, right? They look like they're more of a top half Western Conference team than a bottom half when they're all healthy, of course. In that game, no Brandon Ingram and there was no Herb Jones as well. However, the rest of the Pelicans were there. Celtics come out with a 1 point win. CJ McCollum nearly wins the game with the layup that rims out at the end because the Celtics, and this is what's just again frustrating. Tonight, the Celtics don't handle the details. They end up going into overtime against the Clippers. They don't handle the details against the Atlanta Hawks. They lose that game, just lose it because they can't handle the details. And then the Pelicans game, what I'm talking about now. They don't handle the details in that game either. That game was well over down the stretch, and yet CJ McCollum ends up having a look at the win at the rim that ends up just rimming out, luckily for the Boston Celtics, or else you're really talking about going every other game right now. So you have two lucky occasions, details down the stretch, wide open three, Anthony Edwards misses, wide open layup for CJ McCollum, misses down the stretch. If those don't fall your way with the Boston Celtics, those are two losses, and it's really going back and forth. You're really going back and forth, and those just go along with all the details. The Minnesota game, New Orleans, Atlanta, tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers. But moving on further in time, the next game is in Toronto. Again, beating a dead horse with this one, but Toronto, that was the worst game of the season. The Celtics go up into Toronto, needing to really respond to their last stretch. And they go into the fourth quarter. There's 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's still a game that's fairly within reach for the Boston Celtics. They lose, and it doesn't even feel like the Celtics have any fight down the stretch. It doesn't feel like, oh, they're going to win this game or they're going to be able to pull this out or be able to get close to the Raptors. No, it wasn't anywhere close. Celtics end up getting blown out really in that game, and it really should have been a 16-point win for the Raptors if it wasn't for a Sam Hauser charity three down the stretch. Then you come and blow out the Orlando Magic. Great. Orlando Magic depleted. No Jalen Suggs. No Wagner brothers. All right. Great. You still needed that win if you're the Boston Celtics. Then you go and fumble the details against Atlanta. You fly coast to coast, play the Warriors, blow them out by 40. And then now tonight you go into LA, face a lesser Clippers team, and you fumble the details again if you're the Boston Celtics down the stretch, nearly lose this game. And it just, we're still in the inconsistent stretch. Even though we see 3 wins out of the last 4, that does highlight the team is, in fact, fairly good, the Boston Celtics. The fact that they are not playing anywhere up to par and can still pull out 3 in 4 games and have 2 blowouts in that stretch and still be the number 2 seed and still be 31-13 on the season. That's great for the Boston Celtics and indicates surely a good team. However, we're still dealing with inconsistency. Even with the result tonight, even with the win, we're still dealing with inconsistency. I hate to say it, but it's objective. It is objective when you're looking at, oh, we should be closing this game out down the stretch or even be dominating this game, and instead we're going into overtime, throwing the ball away, and we're playing extra minutes for no reason. No reason. But we will have more tomorrow night. We're just going to be a short post game tonight because I feel like, did I say everything that I wanted to say here on this post game? It's like, pretty much with the team, individual performances. You can say whatever you want about Jaylen Brown. He was not great down the stretch. Jason Tatum took some awkward shots in this game. Peyton Pritchard was just not on his game the entire night. He was really the main culprit of the 3 chucking for the Boston Celtics. Derek White, also a main culprit of the 3 chucking for the Celtics, had a much more efficient second half of the game. Kata was really big in this game for the Boston Celtics. Cornette, less so, not that much. Really didn't do too much for the Boston Celtics tonight after coming off a good stretch of games for Cornette. Walsh, Shireman got a little bit of a run, didn't make too much of an impact. And then Jaden Springer, of course, tonight. Your player spotlight, Jaden Springer. He was just phenomenal, and I think he probably earned himself a couple more minutes tonight. I also want to disclaim on Jaden Springer, too. Really not the best offensive player, can really cancel out his defense sometimes with this offense, but at the same time, that defensive effort, that defensive prowess is really needed on the Boston Celtics at times. And Jaden Springer brought it and really flipped this game, particularly down the stretch and even in overtime, defensively, but even hitting a really big shot offensively when the Clippers were just sending doubles to everybody on the Celtics, letting Jaden Springer stand wide open in the corner, not worrying about him at all. And of course, it burned the Los Angeles Clippers when they allowed Jaden Springer to be wide open, and Jaden Springer has that look back to the bench. We'll look at it one more time. I mean, this is just one of the best feelings in basketball if you are any player, specifically Jaden Springer, tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers. But that's going to do it for us here. Us, I say us, because of course, all of you lovely viewers out there, you're with me here tonight as well. It's not just me on this post game. I know it's solo, but the viewers out there as well. It's us tonight. That's going to do it for us here on the CTW post game show tonight, because the Boston Celtics, of course, walk out with a win, an overtime win against the Los Angeles Clippers, 117-113. And tomorrow, the Celtics are back at it again in Los Angeles. This was their first game in the Intuit Dome, of course. The Boston Celtics making their first appearance in the Intuit Dome, newly opened this season for the Los Angeles Clippers. Celtics making their first appearance tonight. But tomorrow, Celtics back at the Classic Arena, the Crypto.com Arena, formerly known as the Staples Center, against the Los Angeles Lakers. And we are in for one of the two annual games between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Boston Celtics, the most storied rivalry in all of the NBA. We will have you guys covered here for that game tomorrow night. Really not that far away, less than 24 hours from now. That'll be a primetime game, primetime on TV. We will have you guys covered here after that one. Celtics, Lakers, tune in, of course, to the Boston Celtics versus Lakers post-game show after the final buzzer here on the CTW network. It's not our official name, but I like to call it that sometimes, on the CTW post-game show. That's the actual name of the show. But with that being said, the Celtics, they close out the Los Angeles Clippers tonight, 117-113 in overtime. Really wasn't pretty at all for the Boston Celtics, but as we've been saying in the month of January, a win is a win. Tomorrow, the Celtics get another opportunity to put more good building blocks under themselves. That's a term we haven't said this entire post game, is building blocks. These are building blocks for the Boston Celtics. They'll do it again. They'll try to put more building blocks, trying to make those stairs. We're not looking at the house yet. We're looking at the stairs right now for the Boston Celtics and Celtics Nation. But the Celtics tomorrow will have another opportunity in doing that against the Los Angeles Lakers. And of course, as I said, we will have you guys covered here on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. But that's going to do it for me here tonight on the CTW post-game show. I'm going to play this music here. I'm not even sure if we got it going. Oh, here we go. Ah, yes. That's going to do it for me tonight, folks. The Celtics, a win is a win in January. The inconsistency is still around, but as we all know, a win is still a win. We will have you guys covered here tomorrow night for the Celtics versus Lakers game, the most storied rivalry in all of the NBA. Celtics tonight closing out the Clippers 117-113. But that's going to do it for me, your host, Seamus Zarlingo, and as I always say, go Celtics. Thank you all for watching, folks. Thank you.